The corridor outside the intensive care unit had become a vacuum. The air felt thin, insufficient to fill Amy Fleming's lungs, as if the oxygen had been sucked out the moment Lisa turned her back, and the magnetic lock of the ICU door clicked shut. That sound, the sharp, electronic buzz click of the lock engaging, echoed in Amy's mind, louder than the storm outside, louder than the announcement PA, louder than her own heartbeat. It was the sound of a final verdict. Amy stood frozen, staring at the brushed steel of the closed doors. Her reflection was warped in the metal, stretched and distorted, making her look like a funhouse version of herself. But the woman staring back didn't look like a victim. She looked terrified. "You are the stress." The words weren't just a sentence. They were a physical brand. Lisa hadn't shouted them. She had whispered them with a terrifying, absolute certainty. And the worst part, the part that made Amy's knees weak and her stomach churn with acid, was that, for the briefest, most agonizing microsecond, Amy believed her. Amy squeezed her eyes shut, trying to banish the image of Jack turning his head away. She tried to summon the armor Nathan Price had so carefully constructed for her. She tried to replay his voice in her head. "Jack is ashamed. Jack is confused. Lou is the chaos." She repeated the mantra like a prayer, desperate to rebuild the wall of denial that Lisa had just taken a sledgehammer to. "It's not my fault," she whispered to the empty air. But the words felt like ash in her mouth. The conviction was gone. Lisa's accusation had planted a seed of doubt that was rapidly sprouting roots, winding around Amy's resolve and squeezing until she couldn't breathe. She couldn't stand here anymore. She couldn't be near that door, knowing that behind it, the two people she loved most, Lisa and Jack, were united in a silent vigil against her. Amy turned away from the door. Her legs felt heavy, as if she were walking through deep water. She moved toward the elevators, her head down, avoiding eye contact with a passing nurse. She felt marked. She felt like everyone could see the invisible scarlet letter Lisa had pinned to her chest. She rounded the corner to the elevator bank. But she couldn't wait. The thought of being trapped in a small metal box with strangers, forced to make polite space, was unbearable. She shoved open the heavy fire door to the stairwell instead. The stairwell was concrete and cold, smelling of dust and unwashed floors. It was a liminal space, a place between worlds, and it suited her. She gripped the metal railing, the steel biting into her palm, and took the stairs down 2 at a time, fleeing the scene of the crime. At the bottom, she pushed through the exit door into the main lobby. The noise hit her, a wall of chatter, ringing phones, and the general hum of humanity. It was overwhelming. She scanned the crowd, looking for a lifeline. And there he was. Nathan Price stood near the main entrance, just to the side of the grand staircase. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't checking his watch. He was standing with the stillness of a predator or a statue, looking out the glass doors at the rain. He looked immaculate. His suit was unwrinkled. His posture perfect. In a building filled with sickness and disarray, he was a pillar of order. He must have sensed her approach, or perhaps he had been watching her reflection in the glass. He turned slowly. His face lit up with that practiced, warm smile, the one that usually made Amy feel safe. But right now, seeing it felt like looking directly into the sun. It was too bright. It was too perfect. He took a step toward her, scanning her face. He stopped. The smile faltered, replaced by a mask of concern. He saw the tremble in her lip. He saw the way she was hugging herself, protecting her vital organs.
"Amy?"
He closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. He reached out, not to hug her, but to hold her upper arms, steadying her. His grip was firm, grounding.
"You're back early. I thought you'd be in there for an hour at least."
Amy looked at his tie, because she couldn't look him in the eye. If she looked him in the eye, she would have to tell him. And if she told him what Lisa said, If she told him that Lisa, the most rational person in the family, had accused her of almost killing Jack, then Nathan would have to defend her. He would launch into a speech about how Lisa was jealous, or hysterical, or manipulated by Lou. And suddenly, terrifyingly, Amy realized she didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to hear him twist Lisa's grief into a weapon. Because deep down, in a place she refused to visit, she knew Lisa wasn't crazy.
Amy, talk to me. Was he sleeping?
The lie formed in her throat instantly. It was a survival mechanism. It was a way to keep the world from shattering completely.
Yeah.
She forced herself to look up, aiming her gaze at his chin rather than his eyes.
The nurse, she said he was resting deeply. They gave him more sedatives because his heart rate was up. She said it wasn't a good time.
It wasn't a total lie. The nurse had said his heart rate was up, just not for the reason Amy was implying. Nathan studied her face. He was a man who built his fortune on reading people, on finding the cracks in their armor and exploiting them. He saw the tension in her jaw. He saw the way her eyes darted away. He knew she was holding something back. For a second, his grip on her arms tightened. Almost imperceptibly, he wanted to push. He wanted to know exactly what had happened in that corridor. Had Lou shown up? Had Lisa said something? But then he stopped. He saw the fragility in her. She looked like she was made of glass that had already been dropped and was just waiting to fall apart. If he pushed her now, she might break in a way he couldn't fix. She might start asking questions he didn't want to answer. He decided to pivot. He decided to be the sanctuary she needed rather than the inquisitor.
Ah, that makes sense. The body needs sleep to heal. It's frustrating. I know.
Amy nodded, biting her lip to keep it from trembling.
I really wanted to see him.
I know you did, and you will. He's not going anywhere, Amy. He's right upstairs. He's safe.
He let go of her arms and slid his hand down to take hers. His palm was warm, dry, and calloused not from ranch work, but from golf clubs and steering wheels. It felt different than Ty's hand. It felt different than Jack's hand. But it was a hand to hold. And right now, Amy felt like she was drowning.
Come on, you look like you're about to collapse yourself. Let's get you out of here. The air in this place, it's toxic.
Amy nodded again, mute. She let him lead her toward the doors. As they walked, she felt the weight of the secret she was carrying. She hadn't told him about Lisa. She hadn't told him about the stress. She had walled off a part of herself from him. It was the first brick in a wall that would eventually separate them, but neither of them knew it yet. Nathan thought he was leading a compliant, grieving girlfriend out of the hospital. He didn't realize he was leading a woman who was slowly, quietly beginning to wake up from a nightmare. The drive back to Heartland was a study in silence. The rain hammered against the roof of the SUV, sealing them inside a gray, watery capsule. Nathan Price drove with one hand on the wheel, his eyes flicking occasionally to Amy in the passenger seat. She was staring out the window, her forehead resting against the cool glass, watching the sodden fields of Hudson roll by. She looked small, defeated. The fire that usually defined Amy Fleming, the stubbornness, the passion had been doused by the cold water of Lisa's words. Nathan cleared his throat. He hated the silence. Silence was a variable he couldn't control.
You know, we don't have to go straight back.
Amy didn't move her head.
What?
The river. It's wild right now with the storm. We could drive down to the lookout, park the car, just watch the water, clear your head. You used to love the river.
He reached over, letting his hand rest on her knee, a calculated gesture of intimacy. Amy flinched. The touch didn't feel comforting. It felt heavy. The idea of sitting in a car with Nathan, listening to him rationalize the world, suddenly felt exhausting. She didn't want to be soothed. She wanted to crawl into her bed and pull the covers over her head. She wanted to be alone with the echo of Lisa's voice to examine it, to see if it was true. She gently, but firmly, moved her knee away from his hand.
No, I need to go home, Nathan.
Amy, isolating yourself isn't...
I need to check on Lindy. I need to check on the horses. Please, just take me home.
Nathan's jaw tightened. He withdrew his hand, placing it back on the steering wheel. He gripped the leather tight enough to turn his knuckles white. The rejection stung, not because he loved her, though he told himself he did, but because he was losing his grip on the steering wheel of her life.
Of course, whatever you need.
He pressed down on the accelerator. The engine roared, a beast unleashed, carrying them swiftly toward the farmhouse. 20 minutes later, Nathan stood in the kitchen of his property. It was beautiful, expensive, and completely devoid of soul. Just like the man who was currently pouring a generous measure of amber scotch into a glass. He didn't add ice. He drank it straight, feeling the burn tear down his throat. It was the only thing that felt real. He was frustrated. He paced the length of the kitchen, his Italian leather shoes clicking sharply on the polished tile. He had played every card perfectly. The mold scandal, the structural sabotage, the seduction, the isolation of Lou. He had successfully severed Amy from her sister and her grandfather. By all rights, she should be in his arms right now, signing the deed to Heartland over to him just to make the pain stop. But she wasn't. She was pulling away. That glazed look in her eyes at the hospital, that wasn't love, that was doubt. His phone, sitting on the island counter, began to vibrate. It was a harsh, angry buzz against the granite. Nathan glanced at the screen. Gracie. He let out a long, ragged sigh. He picked up the phone, swiping to answer.
Hello, Gracie.
You're taking too long. Nathan leaned against the counter, swirling the scotch in his glass.
It's a delicate situation, Grace. The old man had a heart attack. The family is in crisis.
Crisis is an opportunity, Nathan. Crisis is when people sell. Why haven't I seen the paperwork?
She's close. I have her trust. I just need...
I don't care about her trust. You're playing house with the cowgirl, trying to be the white knight. It's pathetic, and it's slow. Nathan's grip on the phone tightened. Gracie always knew exactly where to stick the knife.
I am handling it. The sister is gone. The grandfather is out of the picture. Amy is the sole decision maker.
And yet, she hasn't decided, which means you're too soft. You're trying to charm her out of her legacy. It's time to stop charming and start breaking. Nathan took another sip of scotch. The burn was fading, replaced by a cold numbness.
What are you suggesting?
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you, I'm taking over the public relations.
Grace, wait. If you go too hard, she'll spook. She'll dig her heels in. You know how stubborn these people are.
She won't dig her heels in if she has no ground to stand on. You handled the internal family drama. Good job. Now, I'm going to handle the external reality.
What are you doing?
I'm making some calls, dropping some hints. The equestrian world is small, Nathan, and gossip travels faster than a thoroughbred.
Gracie, don't...
Just wait and see. Soon Heartland won't just be a tragedy. It will be a liability. Get the contract ready, brother. You're going to need it when she comes crying to you, because the bank accounts are empty. Nathan pulled the phone away from his ear. He stared at the screen for a moment, then threw it onto the counter. It slid across the granite and stopped at the edge. He looked out the window, at the rain-soaked landscape. He should have felt guilty. He should have felt a pang of remorse for the woman he had just dropped off at her farmhouse. But as he finished his scotch, all he felt was the cold calculation of a man who was tired of losing. If Gracie wanted to burn the fields to flush out the prey, well, maybe it was time for a fire. The sound cut through the silence of the Heartland farmhouse like a fire alarm. It wasn't the soft digital trill of a cell phone. It was the jarring mechanical ring of the kitchen wall phone, the line reserved for business. Amy was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of tea that had gone cold. She jumped when the phone rang, her heart doing a frantic gallop in her chest. For a second, she thought it was the hospital. Jack. She scrambled out of her chair, knocking it back against the wall. She grabbed the receiver, her hand shaking.
Hello? Is he okay?
There was a pause on the other end, a confused silence. Then, a woman's voice, cool, professional, and distinctly not a nurse. Amy, this is Eleanor Vanderbeek. I'm calling about midnight. Amy let out a breath, her shoulders sagging. It wasn't the hospital. It was just business. She tried to switch gears, forcing her voice into a semblance of professionalism.
Oh, Mrs. Van. Hi. I'm sorry, we've had a bit of a family emergency. How can I help you? Is midnight okay?
Mrs. Vaughn, the horse is fine, Amy. But I'm afraid I'm going to need to arrange transport. I'm moving him to Greenbrier Stables effective immediately. Amy blinked. Greenbrier? That was 3 hours away. And expensive.
Moving him? But why? We just started his therapy. He's making great progress with the desensitization work. If we stop now...
Mrs. Vand, it's not about the therapy, Amy. Look, I've been hearing things. Concerning things.
Things?
Mrs. Van, about the stability of the ranch. Rumors that the mold issue wasn't fully resolved. Rumors that, well, that the leadership is in shambles. Amy gripped the phone cord, twisting it around her finger.
The mold is gone. We have the certificates. You saw them. And the leadership. Jack is just... He's taking a sick days. I'm here. I'm running things.
Miss Van, with all due respect, Amy, I heard Jack had a massive heart attack. I heard Lou has left Heartland with the financial records. And frankly, I heard you aren't coping well. Amy felt the blood drain from her face. Lou left Heartland? I'm not coping well? Where was this coming from?
None of that is true. Jack is recovering. Lou's is just taking some time off, and I am perfectly capable.
Mrs. Van, I can't take the risk, Amy. Midnight is a 6-figure investment. I can't have him in a facility that's on the verge of bankruptcy or foreclosure. The trailer will be there in an hour. Please have his papers ready.
Fuck up, Daddy.
Amy stared at the receiver. The dial tone buzzed in her ear, mocking her. She hung up the phone slowly, before her hand even left the receiver. It rang again. Amy stared at it. She didn't want to answer, but she had to.
Heartland Ranch.
Amy, it's Jim Henderson. Look, I hate to do this, but I'm pulling rocket. I just got a call from a friend in the association. They're saying Heartland is under investigation again. Something about structural negligence.
What? No. Mr. Henderson, that's a lie. Who told you that?
Mr. Henderson, it doesn't matter who. And frankly, with Jack in the ICU, it just feels like the wheels are coming off the wagon over there. I'm sorry. He hung up. Amy stood in the kitchen, the silence rushing back in, heavier than before. It wasn't just one client. It was an exodus. She walked to the window and looked out at the yard. The rain was letting up, leaving the world gray and muddy. But it wasn't empty. A large, sleek horse transport truck was pulling into the driveway. It wasn't one of their trailers. It was branded Greenbrier Equestrian Transport. Another truck was pulling in behind it, and another. They were vultures. They were coming to pick the carcass clean before the animal was even dead. Amy felt a wave of dizziness. She grabbed the edge of the sink to steady herself. It didn't make sense. The mold was fixed. The barn was safe. Why now? Why today? Of all days. It felt coordinated. It felt like an attack. She thought of calling Nathan. He would know what to do. He would know how to stop the rumors. But then she remembered his face in the car. He's trying to isolate you. No. She couldn't call him. She had to handle this herself. She grabbed her coat from the hook. She was going to go out there and stand in the driveway. She was going to look these drivers in the eye and tell them they were making a mistake. She was going to save Heartland. But as she opened the door, she realized with a sinking heart that you can't fight a rumor with the truth. You can only fight it with power. And right now, Amy Fleming had none. Miles away, in the penthouse suite of the Hudson Grand Hotel, the atmosphere was very different. The air was still, scented with fresh orchids and expensive espresso. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, but inside, it was warm and dry. Gracie Price sat in a velvet armchair, her legs crossed, a phone pressed to her ear. She didn't look like Nathan. Where Nathan was charming and rugged, Gracie was sharp angles and polished surfaces. She was a shark in a silk blouse. She took a sip of her espresso, her eyes scanning a list of names on her tablet, Heartland client list. She had hacked it hours ago. Oh, Mrs. Stanton, I completely understand your hesitation. It's a tragedy, truly. The Bartlett family is, well, they're an institution. But institutions crumble. She paused, listening to the panicked voice on the other end of the line. Yes, I heard about the structural report too. And between you and me, my brother tried to help them. He offered to buy the land just to bail them out of the debt, but the granddaughter, she's not well. The stress of the grandfather's condition has unhinged her a bit. She's refusing to fix the foundations. It's a liability waiting to happen. She swiped a finger across the tablet, marking Mrs. Stanton's name in red. Guess they don't. If I were you, I'd get copper out of there tonight, before the bank freezes the assets. Once the padlocks go on the gates, it's a legal nightmare to get an animal out. She listened for 2 more seconds, then smiled. It was a cold, satisfied smile. You're making the right choice. Grandbrier is lovely this time of year. Good luck. She tapped the red icon to end the call. Gracie set the phone down on the marble side table. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the town of Hudson. Somewhere out there, in the mud and the rain, her brother was failing to close the deal. He was too sentimental. He wanted the girl and the land. Gracie didn't care about the girl. Amy Fleming was just a name, a minor obstacle on a spreadsheet. She cared about the portfolio, the numbers, the assets, the way a single line item could shift the balance of power in her favor. Heartland was nothing more than a potential acquisition, a means to an end, and Amy was simply the unlucky face attached to the deed. Empathy didn't factor into Gracie's calculations. Sentimentality was for people who lost. She had clawed her way too far and too high to let feelings cloud her judgment now. If dragging Amy Fleming's reputation through the mud was the quickest way to drive down the ranch's value, Gracie would do it without a flicker of hesitation. It didn't matter if rumors ruined Amy's standing in the community or made her a pariah among clients. Gracie's conscience didn't even register the collateral damage. She was all sharp edges and boardroom instincts. A predator dressed in silk, and the only thing that mattered was closing the deal at the lowest possible price. If Amy's dreams had to be trampled to boost the bottom line, so be it. Gracie would salt the earth of Amy's reputation, let the vultures sweep in, and watch the numbers fall in her favor, all without blinking, all for the sake of her precious portfolio. She picked up her phone again. She dialed the next number on the list. Let's see about the jumping team. Back at Heartland, the second truck was pulling away. The driveway was empty now, save for the deep, muddy ruts left by the heavy tires. The silence that followed was heavy and unnatural. The barn, usually bustling with activity, stood gaping and hollow. Amy stood in the center of the emptiness. She felt a phantom pain, like a limb had been severed. She looked at the house. It looked dark. Jack was in the hospital. Lou was gone. Lindy was hiding in her room. And now, the horses, the lifeblood of the ranch, were gone too. She pulled her phone from her pocket. She hesitated, her thumb hovering over Nathan's name. He was the only one left. He was the only one who hadn't abandoned her. He was the only one who believed she wasn't crazy. She didn't know that the woman destroying her life shared his last name. She didn't know that the curse plaguing Heartland was sitting in a hotel room 5 miles away drinking espresso. She dialed him.
Nathan, they took them. They took the horses.
She waited for his voice, the only anchor she had left in a storm that was entirely man-made.